Welcome in, everyone, to the Lucky Shots podcast. It is Ricky Larson back here with you today. Week 2 of the NFL season. It's here. Week 1 passed us by. There was a lot of craziness that went on. Things that nobody expected to happen. Questions that needed answered got answered. But mostly it just left more questions. Let's hop into last week. The shockers of last week. We started on Thursday night with the Bills and the Rams. It's not a shocker that the Bills looked good. It's a shocker that the Rams look so bad. The defending Super Bowl champs come in. They only score 10 points. Offense doesn't look all that great. Defense lets Josh Allen just throw all over them. Talk about precision passing. That was Josh Allen on Thursday night last week. 31-10. So now the question becomes, what do we think of the Rams? Do we trust them? Do we think this is going to happen every week? Obviously, Buffalo probably in the top 3 for the teams in the NFL. But, after last season, you probably would have put the Rams up in the top 5 at least. So a bit of a head scratcher going on there. Hopefully they can get it figured out. We'll have to wait and see this week. Then you had Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. If you watch that game, your anxiety shot through the roof. It was fun to watch, but it was not fun to watch. It was just all over the place. Cincinnati, they know that they have a problem with their offensive line. They've had the same problem the last 2 years. They didn't do anything really to fix it this year because Pittsburgh got after Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow had 5 turnovers, 4 interceptions, and a fumble, and they still were in this game. Pittsburgh ends up winning 23-20, bunch of missed field goals. Cincinnati had the game won, then they got their extra point blocked. We go to overtime. Every team misses like 2 field goals, and then finally the Steelers kick it through, get that 23-20 victory. Game that I thought would end up in a tie, just sitting there watching it. A game that did end up in a tie, Indy versus Houston, 20-20. This is more a shocker on Indy's part. How did you not win this game? Well, I can tell you how. They had 2 drives down inside the 5. And I think Jonathan Taylor maybe touched the ball 1 time out of those 8 plays. Why? You're inside the 5-yard line. You have the best running back in the league. Give him the football. They win this game by 2 touchdowns. It's as simple as that. So I'm not going to get too worried about Indy, but a little bit, since the Houston Texans took them down to the wire and made the game tied at the end. So we'll have to wait and see how this week rolls out. Then you had Chicago against San Francisco. It's only a shocker because Chicago won, but neither team looked good at all. Like, not even close. But it's because they were playing in like a foot of standing water. It was like they were playing in a kiddie pool the whole time. Not a great game to gauge how either team's going to look, how either young quarterback is going to look, but hopefully we get a better view of these teams this week. Chicago won 19-10. And then Philly, they beat Detroit, but they beat Detroit 38-35. So that's a huge shocker that Detroit kept up and nearly won that game. So Detroit, somebody that possibly we can look out for to see some more fun games out of, which is not normal. Moving on, we had Cleveland against Carolina. Cleveland won 26-24. This was supposed to be Baker's revenge game. It was not. He lost, and Cleveland won 26-24. Then you had the Giants and the Titans. How about this for a game? The Giants won 21-20. You want to know why? Saquon Barkley is back. He had like 160 some rushing yards. Just looked like the old Saquon Barkley. If he stays healthy, I think the Giants have a great chance of playing well throughout this season. Tennessee, you're going to have to get it figured out. Derrick Henry didn't get a lot. The backup running back did better than he did in fantasy football. And if you lose to the Giants week 1, that's tough for you. Then you had Minnesota and Green Bay. Like I said last week, Green Bay, who knows what they're going to look like. Their offense, wasn't going to be in sync. That's exactly what happened. Minnesota won 23-7. How long does it take for Green Bay to get it figured out? Who knows? I think eventually they will get it figured out. They have Aaron Rodgers, but it was ugly football for the Green Bay Packers. Hopefully for Packers fans, it doesn't persist that way for the next few weeks, but could be a while before we see that offense get in a rhythm. Then you had Kansas City blow out Arizona 44-21. Any questions about whether or not Patrick Mahomes was going to be able to perform without Tyreek Hill? I had a lot of questions. Is this defense going to hold up? Is his offensive line going to be fine? Who's he going to throw the ball to besides Travis Kelce? I mean, he threw the ball to Travis Kelce, but he spread the ball around, which is something we have not seen a lot of. It's been Tyreek Hill. It's been Travis Kelce. He spread the ball around a lot. This offense looked good. Defense looked pretty good as well. Could be scary, and I'm a little worried that my prediction about them finishing last place in the AFC West probably isn't going to pan out. So that hot take, probably down the drain. All right, so now let's move on to the previews for this week. Not going to preview every game, just games that pique my interest, which is honestly quite a lot of them. Let's start out with tonight's game, the Thursday night game, the Chargers versus the Chiefs. Chargers won last week 24-19 against Vegas. Kansas City won 44-21 against Arizona. I think this is going to be a barn burner of a game. Both offenses are electric. Both looked really good last week. Obviously, the score for the Chargers was a lot closer, but I think the Raiders probably are a little better than Arizona. I don't know if Arizona is all that great this year. I guess we'll have to wait and see how the rest of the year goes for Arizona, but I don't think it's going to be as good of a year as it is for the Raiders. So that score, I'm not too worried about. Their offense looked good. They won't have, or may not have Keenan Allen. Probably won't have Keenan Allen. I have not checked the injury report for today, but it's going to fall on Mike Williams and all of the guys that Fields threw to last week. Austin Eckler probably will get more involved, so the offense will be fine. The defense looked really good against the Raiders. So they're going to be trying to get after Patrick Mahomes. But Mahomes, the Chiefs, they look fine without Tyreek Hill. So I think it's going to be more of the same for the Chiefs. I'm not going to say who I think is going to win yet, but the Chiefs definitely looked good last week, despite what I might have thought they would look like. Still don't know how well their defense is going to do, especially against a high-volume offense like the Chargers, but it's going to be a fun game, and it's on Thursday night, so we get it under prime time. Then the Panthers versus the Giants is another interesting one to me because Carolina won a game they probably shouldn't have. They lost the game they should have won against Cleveland, 26-24. Baker looked all right. How's his morale going to be after he said he was going to kick Cleveland's ass, and he didn't. He lost. And then what are the Giants going to look like? Coming off a big 21-20 win against Tennessee. Huge upset there. Like I said, Saquon Barkley's back. So what is Carolina going to have to shut him down? I don't know. They kind of let Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt do whatever they wanted last week. So I think it's another big week for Saquon. But it could be a bounce back game for Carolina. It's a tough one to pick. So I think the Giants have a lot of momentum, but Carolina, hopefully a get right game for them. So we'll see. Then Miami against Baltimore. Miami's defense looked outstanding last week, but it was against the Patriots. That offense still struggling to find his footing even from last year. So is the Miami defense dominant enough to shut down Baltimore, who won last week 24-9 against the Jets? Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews. Their defense is also very good. So who knows? I mean, we saw a little bit of the Tyreek Hill to a connection last week. Do they continue to build on that? Can Baltimore stop it? Can Miami stop Lamar? It's going to be a fun game to watch. I don't I don't think it's going to be high scoring. I think both these defenses are going to get the better of both the offenses. So it'll be pretty close. And that one will be a fun defensive battle, I believe, to watch. Then Washington and Detroit. Washington won last week against Jacksonville 28-22. Their passing game seems to have improved with Carson Wentz there. More than just Terry McLaurin was catching the football. Curtis Samuel's back, apparently. Jahan Dotson, the rookie, looked really good. And they have Terry McLaurin. So that passing game's definitely improved. But they're going up against Detroit, who only lost by 3 to Philly. They kept up with Philly, who is one of the front runners for their division, and an offense that you could say is pretty good. So the fact that they kept up, it's going to be interesting to see what Detroit does. And it's a game where I believe both these teams are pretty evenly matched. I would say that Washington maybe has the edge, but Detroit, despite losing, kind of has the momentum. It's a game that they shouldn't have been even close in, and they dang near won it. So they were that close. You got to imagine they're going to be a little hungrier this week. Then Arizona against Vegas. Arizona got their asses kicked last week against Kansas City. Kyler didn't do hot. Their defense was a problem. And they're going up against Vegas, who only lost by 5 to the Chargers. My only problem watching that game with the Raiders and the Chargers last week was Raiders' offensive line isn't great. They got a lot of pressure on them, especially at the end of the game. So possibly Arizona could get to them. But Vegas, I think their offense is pretty good. Arizona didn't get a lot of pressure on Mahomes last week. So that'll be a fun one to watch. We'll see if it's a get-right game for Arizona. See if Kyler can right the ship. But I don't know. The Devontae Adams and Derek Carr connection looked pretty good last week. Then Cincy against Dallas. This one is interesting for a lot of reasons. You had Cincinnati. They lost. Obviously, we talked about that at the beginning of the show against Pittsburgh and the wild craziness of special teams and defense in overtime last week. So how are they going to look? Are they going to get right? Jamar Chase was pretty involved. Could have been even more involved. This offensive line is just terrible in their special teams. They allowed a block kick. They missed two game-winning field goals. I don't know. I mean, I think their offense is good, but they're going up against a Dallas team that lost 19-3, but their defense looked really good against the Bucs. Only one touchdown, I believe, was scored in that game. I mean, they did a pretty good job shutting down what I would say is a high-powered offense. But they also don't have Dak. It's going to be Cooper Rush. How's the offense going to look with him? Are we going to see more of a run-heavy-ish type game? Possibly. But Cincinnati's defense looked decent against the run last week. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how it's going to look. I don't know how Dallas is going to operate with Cooper Rush. I mean, we've seen a sample size of it, but not enough to know what to expect. And Cincinnati didn't look all that great last week with 5 turnovers by Burrow. So it's going to probably be another rough defensive battle. We'll have to see who comes out on top. Then on Sunday night, you got Chicago and Green Bay. Chicago, they won their game in the kiddie pool against the 49ers, 19-10. Green Bay got their butts kicked. Their offense just looked lost last week against Minnesota, 23-27. Does Aaron Rodgers figure it out really fast, and this is the week they turn it around? Does Chicago keep up momentum? I mean, Aaron Rodgers likes to say he owns you, that you're his child, but your offense doesn't look like it's going to do that this week. So it'll be fun to watch. We'll see if Chicago has something to celebrate about, and hopefully it's a better weather game so we can get a more accurate read on what Justin Fields looks like this year, what that offense looks like this year. And hopefully Green Bay makes it competitive. So it's a competitive game. We'll have to see what happens. And then to finish off the week, Monday night, Minnesota against Philly. Minnesota looked really good against a weak Packers offense and a defense that should be good, but Justin Jefferson. That's the answer. So he had nearly 200 receiving yards. I don't see that changing this week, especially since against Detroit, Philly gave up a lot of passing yards, gave up a big fantasy game to not only 2 running backs, but a wide receiver. That offense was moving the ball. So Philly's defense is going to be a little shaky, I think, going up against Minnesota, who kind of looks like they have it figured out. Who knows? And honestly, Philly's defense wasn't doing great, and then they got lazy at the end of the game. So if they don't finish out against Minnesota, that's going to be tough for them. But if their offense can put up 38 points, maybe a shootout game. So we'll have to see how that goes. But let's finish off this episode today, get you into the Thursday night football game with the weekly picks. We're going to start with the Thursday night game, obviously. Got Kansas City, got the Chargers. Not going to make the same mistake twice. I think Kansas City pulls this off. I think it's a shootout game. I think both offenses look great, but I think Kansas City pulls it off. It was a very decisive victory last week. I want the Chargers to win, but I think Kansas City gets the nod in that game. Pittsburgh versus New England. Give me Pittsburgh. I know that TJ Watt's hurt, but there was more than TJ Watt disrupting the game last week. Minka Fitzpatrick, was an absolute game wrecker, had a pick 6, had that blocked PAT. Guy's a man. The front defensive line looks really good. New England did not look good at all last week. Mac Jones may play, may not play, has a bummed back. It doesn't look good for New England, so give me Pittsburgh. Carolina against the Giants. I think the Giants continue to build momentum. I think Saquon continues to build momentum. And I think Carolina drops another game. And I like Baker. I think he's going to be fine, but I don't think this is his week either. Then the Jets against Cleveland. Give me Cleveland. Didn't see much out of the Jets last week. Cleveland won. Their running backs looked really good, so we'll take Cleveland in that one. Indy against Jacksonville. Can I say tie? Not going to. I'm going to go with Indy against Jacksonville. I think Indy, their offense is fine. They have the best running back in the league. They have a guy who just solidified himself inside the top 5 last week for wide receivers and Michael Pittman. So I think they get it figured out this week. And if they get down towards the goal line, hopefully they figure out just give it to Jonathan Taylor. Let him punch it in, win by a few scores. Baltimore against Miami. We're going to go with Baltimore. I think Miami's defense is really good. This one's tough because Miami's defense looked really good, but it was against a shaky team. Now they're up against a capable offensive captain, we'll say. Not necessarily a quarterback, but he can throw. He runs a lot. Mark Andrews is a thing. Their defense is good, so give me Baltimore. Tampa against New Orleans. This has got to be a trap. You're supposed to take Tampa as the obvious favorite. I'm going to take Tampa, but they don't have a good track record against New Orleans under Tom Brady, so could be a bad pick there for me, but we're going to go with Tampa. Washington against Detroit. Detroit's the favorite, and I do like Detroit in this one. Let's see if they actually are decent and can make something happen against Washington. Washington's defense obviously isn't where it used to be. Their offense is making a little progress, but I like Detroit. I like the fact that DeAndre Swift ran for over 150 yards. Jamal Williams scored a couple touchdowns. Amon-Ra St. Brown got that connection going with Jared Goff. So give me Detroit for that one. Seattle against San Francisco. Seattle, they beat the Broncos last week. That was rough. Anyway, Geno Smith looked pretty good. 17 for 18 in the first half. They pulled out the victory against Denver. San Francisco, they lost. It was in a slosh pit. They should win this game. But Seattle looked pretty all right. So give me the upset with Seattle there. Then Atlanta against the Rams. Taking the Rams, I think it's a bounce-back game. I still don't think Atlanta has the firepower to keep up with them. I don't think their defense is as good. So give me a bounce-back week for the Rams. Then Arizona against Vegas. We're going to take Vegas. They were real close last week. They didn't just get decimated like Arizona. So morale isn't going to be super low like I think the Cardinals' morale will be. And their offense looked pretty good. Devontae Adams is on that offense. Darren Waller. Josh Jacobs. I think Vegas gets it done. I think it's a bounce-back week for the Broncos against the Texans. But again, Houston just played Indy to a tie. So a little scared about it, but I think the Broncos at home get that done. Cincy against Dallas. No Dak Prescott. I don't know how well that offense is going to move. Cincinnati, I know they have offensive firepower against a good defense. It's going to be tough, but give me Cincinnati. Then Chicago against Green Bay. I'm going with Chicago. I still don't think Green Bay is going to have their offense figured out. It's just the way it is. They didn't last week. I don't think it's going to drastically change in a week. And it's on Sunday night, so we'll go with Chicago there. And then we have 2 Monday night games this week. Tennessee against Buffalo. Give me Buffalo. Tennessee, you just lost to the Giants. Buffalo just beat the hell out of the defending Super Bowl champions. I don't think you got a chance. I'm sorry. And then Minnesota against Philly. Let's ride the Minnesota wave. We'll take the Vikings over the Eagles to cap off our picks. But that is it for today. That is it for this week. Thursday night football coming up tonight. Got the Chiefs, got the Chargers. Should be a fun one. Hopefully it's another fun week, because last week it was a lot of fun with what happened with the games. So hopefully it's another exciting slate of games, but we'll see. Tune in next week. Hopefully we'll go live on Twitch next week, and then you'll catch the playback here on YouTube. If you don't like to watch the show, just like to listen, it is on Apple Podcast, Anchor, Spotify, all those places. You can go check it out there as well. And don't forget, give a like, give a comment, subscribe, follow, all those things. You go follow the Twitter, follow the Facebook, all those things. But until next week, we'll see you on Tuesday, but have a good weekend of football.